Hello, Great Life Design Mastermind, and everyone else who manages to hit this on Vimeo. I am here today with the amazing Danielle Dulsky. I've been a bit of a fangirl of hers for a little while, and her writing swoons me like you cannot believe. And if you have ever had the opportunity to read her on Rebel Society or any of her websites, you've had that pleasure as well. She's on book tour right now for her new book called Women Most Wild, and we get to listen to her muse a little bit today. So Danielle is an artist, a teacher, a writer, a longtime activist for wild women's spirituality and the divine feminine return. She leads women's circles, witchcraft workshops, energy healing trainings, and basic and advanced yoga teacher trainings. Thank you for being with us today, Danielle.
Thank you, Cherise. Very happy to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited to be just basking in your glow. And I love the way you're sitting right there. It's like this beautiful glow on your face. So we literally are basking in you. So can we start off? I want to ask you about this book. So can you tell us about the book?
Yes. So the book is Women Most Wild, 3 Keys to Liberating the Witch Within. And it was kind of born from all of the work that I've done with women in women's circles and in yoga teacher trainings, that I would kind of try to, I've been a witch for a long time, so I would try to infuse witchcraft into these apparently non-witchy things, even though they were really very witchy. And every time we would do something like cast a spell or perform some kind of a ritual, women who certainly would never call themselves witches, but maybe had never even done things like that before, would feel this sense of homecoming. And they would like know how to do it in a way that was like remembering. Like they remembered how to cast the circle. They remembered, the scent of certain herbs and that feeling of sisterhood. So, and then the next step after that sense of coming home was always, now that I feel this, now that I have this sense of wild womanhood, what do I do with it? And like, how do I enact it in a world that tells me it's wrong or weird or whatever. So the book was born from this idea of like, how do I give like practical kind of step-by-step advice to something that by nature is very mystical and non-practical, and how do I do that in a way that's very accessible and non-dogmatic? Because I think a big barrier for women when they feel called toward witchcraft is this idea that it's a religion, when a lot of them have been screwed by religion in the past. So there's that fear of just falling into another spiritual system that will end up being disempowering for them. So all of that was what I was trying to get into this book that was like, 65,000 words or whatever. So I was trying to get all of that information in there and then try to get it out into the world and into as many women's hands as possible.
Okay, so thank you so much for writing this book is the first thing I have to say. And I love what you said about they started remembering. And because when I'm in circle, I frequently talk about how things are in our cell memories. So we're either in past lives, and I've had many conversations, obviously, with sisters about, hey, like we're feeling the fire again. I don't want to be burned again. So, because this is a thing, like, I love that shirt that says we are the granddaughters of the witches you failed to burn.
Yeah.
And so yes. And also we are the witches you burn as we've incarnated, and we're all finding each other in this life. And also this feeling of, I'm so proud, like I love it that we're gathering and having the conversation, because I think what some of us are definitely fearing a little bit is, so how are you going to burn me this time?
Yeah.
Because, we do see it, and it comes up subtly. And so I'll give you an example. Years ago, I was with some friends, and definitely not my circle necessarily, but there was a woman there who had expressed, oh, Cherise is a witch. And instantly the eyeballs that went to my way and like, what does that mean? And how I just was like, instantly the judgment, the giggles, oh, what is that? And I'm like, so how do I play this out? Do I tell them how silly their religion is? Like, do I go into resistance? So I just really sat with it and didn't engage in the argument, so to speak, or the rhetoric of judgment.
Right.
And which was and I just was like, okay, and didn't feel the need to be in defense. And that felt good in my system. I was like, oh, I don't have to be in defense in this life. Like, I'm actually not at risk. You attempted the burning through your judgment.
Right.
So
yeah.
I guess my question and all of that would be, how do we help women navigate this narrative of the judgment that will come? Because this is this is bumping right up against the patriarchy.
Yeah. I think it comes down to like finding the right fuel for you. So like the right fuel to bust through those barriers. So for you, like somebody saying that you're a witch and then there's those giggles and stuff, there's that level of judgment where they look at anything that's divine feminine. And by they, I just mean, people, not just men, not, catty women or whatever. But that idea that it's like fluffy, right? Or that it's like, that only flakes do it or something like that. There's that. And then there's the real hardcore fear that I think that level of like dismissing and fluffiness sometimes really just obscures or masks fear of what a witch's power is. Because a witch is somebody that stands in her power. And a big part of magic and spellcraft is believing that you have the right to do it. There is this sense of will and agency and self-esteem that's really like in the belly that is completely absent from all other religious systems that or most of the religious systems that we're exposed to in the West anyway. Where the feminine is completely disempowered. So that kind of giggling when people say that you're a witch, like just look at that like a result of indoctrination, and it's not even theirs. It's just something that they've been told and absorbed since childhood, and so it's not real. And so there's no reason to feel shamed or guilted or like I say in the book, like run screaming back into the broom closet. There's no reason to do that because those barriers, at least, here in our society, usually aren't real. They're just the result of fear.
Yes. Fire and brimstone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would love to hear about your muse in your writing and in everything you do. Talk to me about her.
My muse. So my muse is absolutely nature. And if I feel stuck in my writing, which I do regularly, all I have to do is go outside. Now, I know that like people read what I write and they think that I live in like this cabin in the woods and I just have nature very accessible to me all real in the woods nature is a 15 or so minute drive. So I do have to go somewhere to, am I still here?
We cut out for a second.
Yeah.
Just hang on. I'm just going to make sure I'm going to pause this for a sec.
Okay.
Hi, we're back. Sorry, we just had a little bit of internet trouble, and now Danielle is going to continue to talk to us about her muse.
Yeah, so my muse is nature, and I do usually have to drive to get to the kind of nature that I need. I mean, sometimes I can just go outside and look up at the sky, and I do have a few trees in my backyard, but it's fenced in and it feels, sometimes it doesn't feel sufficient. And so, driving to some place that really feels authentically wild, and just sitting there and kind of looking for messages from the mystery, that's my surefire muse. So, if there's like, I have to write this, I have a deadline, I'll do that. And I know that it will always work. Now, then I have like these little tricks that, that if I don't have time to just go and drop everything and drive, I will sometimes read, writings from poets, like read poetry or read other authors' writings. Sometimes I'll sink into a path-working meditation where I'm trying to really connect with spirit guides and see what needs to come through me. And for me, there is this really clear distinction between writing that feels channeled, that feels like it's not really coming from me, even though it's my hands that are typing, and then writing that feels a little bit more like what I would call academic, like writing that feels, like structured, and that I have to keep stepping back, or what I call spiraling out and making sure that everything makes sense and I've spelled everything correctly. So my muse for that is different. My muse for the more academic writing is kind of would be reading other authors' work and kind of figuring out what ideas I really want to present and seem important for the community, versus that channeled writing is like really this deep kind of primal tapping into the cosmic mystery and just seeing what happens. And sometimes it comes out and it's so bizarre that I don't really want to share it with anyone, but I definitely feel like I've tapped into the muse.
Yes.
So yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. So would you say that you have a creative habit? Like, is there a certain time you write, or do you just wait for it, or what is your process?
Yeah, I absolutely have to write in the morning, and I do write almost every morning. I've tried to not write on the weekends anymore, but I do try to write for at least an hour every morning. And certainly if I have like an article that I know that I have to submit, I'll carve out a space of time somewhere between like 7 and noon, because that is when I know I'm the most creatively fertile. And then it starts to kind of wane after noon. Like the words just don't come as easily. And I'm pretty good at like sensing when I really feel like I'm writing up against a wall and like nothing's really flowing, and I'm pretty good at just closing the laptop and moving on and coming back when I need to. But the morning is the time that I really feel like I can trust. If I write at any other time of day, it feels a little bit more tired. So if I have this really good relationship with the notes app on my iPhone. So if I'm like in Giant in the grocery store and I get like this idea, I'll really quick like stick it into my notepad on my phone and come back to it later.
Yeah. Siri, take a note.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's me as I'm driving all the time.
So I have like a pile of at least 2 journals. Yeah.
Sorry, we broke up a little bit there, but I think it worked itself out. I rarely have. It's so funny. I'm going, okay, there's a trickster in the room. Like we've channeled something that's playing with us a little bit. Well, hello, we see you. You just interrupt the internet again.
Exactly.
Can we go in a little bit of a different direction now? And I'd like to talk a little bit about feminine leadership, because you talk a bit about it in the book. And I would like your take on feminine leadership, what that looks like, and how women can be doing this and how we should do it differently.
Yeah. The first talk that I tried to give on feminine leadership was a few years ago. And it was funny because I Googled it, like trying to research what I was going to be talking about, to see just what was out there. And like the information that comes up is so funny and weird and like all about, these stereotypical traditional gender roles that, like feminine leadership is soft, feminine leadership is nurturing, and like all of that. And it doesn't have to be that way. There is this idea of the primal feminine leader that I love. And if you look at the triple goddess archetype, which I use as a metaphor a lot. So thinking about maiden, mother, crone in terms of not a linear progression, not like we're maidens when we're younger, then we're mothers when we're childbearing age, and then we become crones when we're older. But more of this idea that we embody all 3 of those archetypes all the time, right? And there are primal aspects to all 3. So the maiden really lives in like the lower chakras. So she's kind of soul bound, and she's instinctual and reactive, not necessarily immature, but she's very kind of like into self-preservation and concerned with her own personal expression of the wild woman. So usually that's like out running around in the woods and kind of in this solitary, sensual place. So the maiden isn't necessarily that generative and that relational. relational. And so when it comes to leadership, she needs to kind of be transmuted into the mother who is more creative and more relational and lives in the middle chakras, so solar plexus, heart, and throat. And the mother is not just nurturing and soft and those things that we think of when we think of the mother, but also really like fierce and claims her right to speak and be heard, which is one of the most empowering aspects of a women's circle or a coven even is that right to speak and be heard, because a lot of women don't have that. And I think that when women find themselves in positions of leadership where they haven't had that right to speak and be heard in that really authentic way validated for them previously, it can manifest in this kind of skewed way in a leadership position where we try to take on like the more masculine, the more like dominating and masculine ways of communicating, which aren't feminine. They're of the father archetype. So there's maiden, mother, crone, and then there's hunter, father, sage. And we just have to always remember that we're living in a world that's been ruled by the father for so long. So the mother's very collectivist and holistic, whereas the father's very individualistic and protective, right? So when we unify those two, and we don't try to just always be a leader from that perspective of the father that the patriarchy tells us that we should, then we do become more relational in our leadership, and we are very empathic, and we're able to connect with other people in a way that affirms their most soulful talents and skills, and then uses those as resources, frames, diversity in its broadest definition in terms of a resource rather than a liability. And then you're able to step into the crone, right? And so a big part of primal feminine leadership is also that crone archetype, which is very still and solitary and intuitive, fiercely intuitive, and like able to see in the dark and look forward. So the primal feminine leader really unifies all three, maiden, mother, crone, and is able to be present as the maiden, be sensual, be soulful and individualistic, but then also be very relational and nurturing and holistic and a storyteller, a truth teller as the mother, and then be able to engage in this fierce foresight as the crone. Like, that's how I look at primal feminine leadership, as being all three at once.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. I love that definition. That was perfect. I sunk into that a lot. And also I like that you brought up the fact that when like almost the symptomatology of why certain women have taken on this masculine way of leading, because I think if they haven't seen examples of feminine leadership that is fully integrated, as you spoke of, we end up doing it in a man's way, which is the issue here, which is why we have women rubbing up against each other when we're supposed to be coming into sisterhood and understanding. One of the most important things I say, and I literally read it right in your book right away, that just swooned me. I was like, yes, is that it's this equality piece. Because I always say feminine leadership is a circle. There is no hierarchy.
Yeah.
And the second that we are stepping into a sense of hierarchy or believing we're special, we're better, we're different, or feeling that sense of that, we've come out of the archetype of the feminine again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Exactly. Like our corporations and our businesses, they're modeled after military organizations, right? Because that was kind of the original like big thing. And so all of the leaders were male, and they were very hierarchical and competitive, right? And like out to get. So exactly, like we don't have a lot of examples of strong feminine leadership and organizations that are structured in a circular way, and even covens have fallen prey to that, where they were very hierarchical, and there can be this level of disempowerment for newer members because they haven't climbed the ranks, the degrees or whatever. So yeah, and that's why, the women's circle and women stepping into their own spiritual power and out of spiritual oppression is so important, because it's not just an act of personal liberation, it's an act of feminine liberation for the global community.
Yes, thank you so much. Oh no, yeah. And then how do we do that? Well, that's a 3-hour summit. It's such a big, there's so many layers to that.
Yeah.
I'd love to ask you, and this may be a big question, what do you wish all women knew?
I wish that all women knew that their bodies are autonomous, that their bodies are their own, and that they don't belong to anybody but them, that their psyches and spirits have been subject to appropriation just because of our society, and that all beliefs should be examined. I wish everybody knew that, not just women, that all beliefs should be examined, because we always have limiting beliefs. Even if we've engaged in a practice of examining indoctrinated beliefs for years, we still have beliefs that limit us, because they're cyclical and they come and they go, and they're just constantly needing to be looked at. But especially spiritual beliefs. I wish that all women would really affirm their right to look at beliefs about what divinity is, what deity is, what their role in the cosmic game is, and I wish that they would do that in a way that was fearless, and that they didn't feel, like you said, fire and brimstone, that they didn't feel that they would be punished for doing that. And I wish that they would all do it tomorrow.
I love it that you said that. I recently reached out to my astrologer on demand, and I'm like, what's going on with my planets right now, and asking her these questions. And isn't this like, of course, like I have that on like a astrologer on demand, and
Yeah.
she's like, okay, well, this is what's happening, it's about Neptune. And then she goes, but I pulled this card for you. And I was like, oh, and it's like this patient process, and I'm like, why? It's just this constant patient process. And and also that just feeds right into the leadership piece.
Yeah.
If you're going to be this leader, you're going to be asked to be patient. And okay,
Mm-hmm.
sit with that.
Yeah, and it's not easy.
No, not easy at all. And come on, sister, come with me faster.
Yeah.
I want to know, I want to ask you a little bit of a personal question around what are your non-negotiables?
Non-negotiables. My biggest non-negotiable is time alone. I need to have time alone to process. So I have two children. They're 8 and 11 now. But I only have them about half the time, but I live with my partner, so he's here a lot. But I know that no matter how abundant I feel in other areas of my life, no matter how much money I have coming in, no matter how much sisterhood I'm getting, no matter how much my sacred work is being validated, if I don't have time alone, I feel like my self-worth has been lowered a little bit. Like I really have this kind of time currency that I'm in touch with, and that I have a pretty good relationship with, because I know that about myself. So I'm lucky that I'm surrounded by people who know that about me, who know that mom needs to go off and do her thing, and it's fine, and she'll be back. But that's the biggest one is sacred solitude is what I call it. So this time alone, not doing, just kind of being. Yoga is a big non-negotiable for me. I teach yoga. It's the probably the biggest part of my sacred work, or has been for a long time. I've been teaching for more than half my life. Which is crazy. So, but I have a really strong personal practice that I do every morning that I weave in with my spellcraft. So my witchcraft and my yoga are kind of one thing now, which is completely non-negotiable for me. So even if I'm traveling and I've been kind of uprooted and I'm somewhere that I'm not familiar with, I try to hold on to that. Even if it's like a bathroom circle, I'm locking the door and I'm in the bathroom and nobody can bother me. And let's see, I could go on. Sisterhood is non-negotiable for me. I need that particular form of feminine communication that, in my experience, only comes from a purposefully created circle. Like, it's not the same if I invite friends to go to a bar or whatever. It's not the same, right? Because that communication is more ego-centered. But I need that circle nourishment of everybody sitting around, speaking and being heard, and just like the kind of empathic, heart-centered presence that comes from that. I feel you don't get anywhere else. So I need that in my life pretty regularly. I mean, once a month or so is usually good enough for me. What else do I need? I need hugs from my 8-year-old son because he's so cute. I need hugs and snuggles from my 8-year-old son. And I need a level of activism in my life. I mean, I think that that's a big part of witchcraft that gets overlooked, is witches are activists, and witches are upset right now with what's going on in the world and in the political climate. And I know that for me, I need to feel not alone in that. I need to feel like I have other people around me that are not disempowered or feeling defeated by what's going on in the world right now, but are really taking it as a call to action. So I need that in my life also. I need this sense of communal activism.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Those are juicy. And I relate to the hugs. Yes.
Yeah.
I relate to all of it, but I'm like, yeah, the hugs are pretty non-negotiable. So I believe your book is entirely a book about the courageous path. And is there any advice that you would like to leave women with around the courageous path of owning the craft and the remembering?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think that it comes down to remembering. So my go-to advice is always to look to those moments from childhood when you really felt like you were the most you, when you felt like you were really living your truth, when you felt like, call them bhava moments in yoga, because bhava means body, mind, spirit engaged in the same action. So when you really felt like you were so depressed, times it's garden, times it's dancing. So what I usually tell women is to look back into those moments from childhood that I call bhava moments. So times when their body, mind, and spirit were engaged in the same action. Sometimes it's gardening or creative work or dancing. Sometimes it's doing the dishes. Like usually it's these kind of what seem like mundane and unimportant things. Look to those moments. And if a lot of those moments involve nature and a sense of magic, then maybe explore what witch means to you. And I'll leave it at that. Just explore, what witch means to you, and then which beliefs are really your own, and which have been absorbed from fairy tales or the media, and to really start examining witchcraft as a path of spiritual liberation, potentially.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So I'm absorbing so much of what you said. I would love for you to tell everybody how they can find you, where you write, where you play, and retreats, or how people do yoga with you, everything. I'd like to hear the whole spectrum.
Okay, the whole spectrum. I have a lot. My website is danielledulsky.com, and it's usually relatively up to date. I lead yoga teacher trainings exclusively in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. So there's a studio there called Ocean, Earth, Wind, and Fire. And I lead basic 200-hour trainings and then advanced 300-hour trainings there. And they're in immersion format. So usually it's people coming from all over the world. So it's exciting. And I also have an online course, a companion course for the book. That's all on the website. I am traveling a lot this summer, so I'm going to be in the Pacific Northwest for the whole end of July. So I'm going to be in Eugene, Portland, and Seattle for different workshops and things. So that's all on the website. And then I'm going to be in the UK right after that. So I have a workshop in Brighton, another one in the beginning of August. And am I still here?
You're still here. You're good.
Am I still? I am. Okay, good.
We heard Brighton,
and then
you're Brighton, and then where were you after Brighton?
Cornwall before Brighton.
Okay.
And then I'm going to be at Wild Woman Fest in New York, which is around August 9th to 13th. And that's a really cool event. I'm excited about that. Yeah. So, and all of that's kind of ongoing. And then I do offer one-on-one sessions that I call the Witching Moon sessions. I only offer those in autumn. So those will be coming up too.
Amazing. Okay. I'm excited to hear you going to Seattle. I'm going to look at those dates and maybe I can make it down there.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's July 21st.
Perfect. And can you tell us a little bit about where to read all your writing? Because you write all over the place.
I do. I'm usually weekly on Rebel Society. So, and I have been for about a year and a half now. So if you Google like my name on Rebel Society, you get like 75 articles that come up. I also have a advice column on Urban Howl. Howl for Me Wolf Woman, so women can write in and ask for witchy clarification on different things. And I'm on the House of Twigs, which is kind of witchy. She calls it the Witch's Vogue.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
So those are the main three. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Danielle, for
Thank you.
Being very open and revealing about you, plus this amazing book that I think everybody should go buy. It's I got it last night and I started to read and my, wanting to read front to back, but then I just started skipping around because there was so much good stuff in here. And so enjoy the book. Thank you, Danielle, so much for the interview.
Thank you.
I'm just going to press stop record.
Okay, awesome.